this session is not going to be a very technical session. It's really geared towards people who are maybe already working with Power Apps for their current company and they're thinking they might want to become a Power Apps developer. Or maybe it's someone who doesn't really do much with Power Apps, but they're thinking maybe they might want to switch over into Power Apps or Power Platform or something similar. So yeah, who am I? My name's Charles Sexton. You can call me Charlie. I work for a company called Bridgel. They're based in Scotland, and they're a Microsoft partner. They're a consultancy company. So I'm working on projects for clients building Power Platform solutions. And I've been there for 1.5 years. And I'll go into more details on that later. So the agenda for today, basically I want to talk a little bit about Power Apps, talk about mentality and feelings, because I think that's really important. And then I'll tell you about my specific journey. And I want to talk to you about your superpowers, because we're all superhuman. And then to think about those superpowers and consider which role would suit you, what's going to be best for you. And if you do want to go the route of Power Apps development or Power Apps consultancy, then what are you going to need to know in order to do that? And then finally moving on to what it's like to work for a Microsoft partner, and then how you would actually get a job with a Microsoft partner. And then we can have a lovely discussion after that. And we've got so many legends on the call. So there's so much knowledge and expertise on this call that it's amazing. Yeah, it's a real pleasure. So yeah, Power Apps, why is it so amazing? Well, there's so many reasons, and I'll just cover some highlights. Really low barrier to entry. It's very quick and easy to pick it up and start doing something. Even if it's not great, you can achieve things very quickly. So there's the speed of development, of course. So it's very quick to do things, and that's why it's so appealing, and that's why it's growing so much in popularity, and low code in general. With Power Platform, the authentication is sorted. So when your users open their apps, they're asked to log into their Microsoft account, and it's all handled for you. You don't have to worry about tokens and things like that. It's all quite simple. There are so many integrations. There's over 1,000 connectors and lots of other different ways that you can integrate and bring data into Power Apps. And there's just so much you can do. It's amazing. You have a database that's ready-made for you called Dataverse. And with Dataverse, you've got so many different things that you can do that you wouldn't get in a traditional SQL database. And it's ready for you. So you just create your tables, start chucking your data in there, and it's sorted. It's very quick and easy. You don't have to worry about things like data migrations and stuff like that. So as far as security roles, they're built into Dataverse as well, and built into Power Platform. You have standard security roles that are ready for you to use straight away, or you can create custom ones. And there will be limitations that you'll hit upon at some point when you're developing things, maybe not in the early days, maybe it's later on, but at some point you will hit upon a limitation with the low code aspect. And then you can integrate with pro code. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go off and learn a pro code language, go off and learn JavaScript or something like that. But you can download plugins and things like that, components that you can use in your apps. Or maybe if you're working for a Microsoft partner, you might have another department or other people who know the pro code, and you can lean on them to help you with that. And finally, why it's so amazing is because you get to use creativity and logic at the same time, which I think is amazing. So you just get lots of different good feelings, I think, from Power Apps. And there's more to Power Apps than just the apps. There's Power Platform. So you've got automation, you've got chatbots, you've got websites, you've got Power BI for reporting. And then you've also got Dynamics 365, which is Microsoft's pre-built apps, where they have an app for sales, customer insights, which is marketing, field service, and other things like that. So it's a massive ecosystem, and there's a lot to it. And because of that, you might sometimes reach the point where you're thinking, I'm not good enough, I can't do this. So bear in mind that you can't know everything. None of us know everything. What you should do is focus on what you do know if you need to feel good about yourself. There will be things that you know, and if you reflect on what you know, what you've achieved, that helps you to feel good. And find your niche. So there'll be something that you're particularly good at, something that you enjoy more than anything else. And that's what I would recommend focusing on. You can be an expert in your own little domain. I do think it's important to be aware of your weaknesses and work on them. So as I was working through my projects last year, I was recognizing that I wasn't happy with the way that things were going with the data in the projects. So I decided to do the Azure Data Fundamentals certification. And I felt like that gave me a little bit of extra knowledge that just made me feel a bit better about what previously I considered a weakness. So think about where things aren't quite working out for you. And maybe that's the place where you go through a Microsoft Learn path, and then you feel more confident about what you're doing. And finally, be kind to yourself, be lenient with yourself. And don't expect yourself to pick up everything the first time you go through a Learn path. For me, when I'm going through a Learn path, there are some things I pick up and some things I just kind of glaze over because I can't take them in at that moment in time. And I know it will come up again, and that's fine. Maybe it will come up when I'm practicing for the exam, that kind of thing. And you'll get frustrated or stuck or both at the same time. And it happens to me regularly, particularly with Procode, but a lot in Power Platform as well. And again, it's fine. Utilize something like ChatGPT or Copilot, utilize a colleague or a friend, post on the community forums. There are so many ways that you can help yourself. And it could be that you're going to be frustrated and stuck and you can't get past it for whatever reason. Maybe you return to it a week later, a month later, or even many months later, and it finally clicks for you. You finally understand the concepts, and that's fine as well. Everything takes time. And I think one of the things that I noticed with myself when I was moving into becoming a Power Apps developer is that I was pushing myself really hard to learn as much as possible and as quickly as possible. But it's important to recognize that there's only so much you can do, and give yourself some space, let yourself take the time to build up your knowledge, absorb things bit by bit, and yeah, just give yourself a chance because it's really hard work sometimes. So speaking about my journey, as you can see, that I'm really good at multitasking. At a young age, I could look at dual monitors at the same time, which is really cool. No, just joking about that. So I guess my career journey started when I was probably about 14 years old. I really got into music. I started playing guitar and singing and writing music, and just got so excited about that. And I was doing my GCSEs, and my teacher gave us an assignment where we had to build a kind of company in Excel. And I didn't really know anything about it, but I started working on it and I actually found it really exciting and really cool. And I still have the file. I managed to dig it up, and those are screenshots from the file. So I had this theatre company, and you could look at the seating, and you had different tiers of seating with different costs, of course. So you could figure out your profitability. You could check how much money you'd make from your snack bar with sales. You could check the staff wages. It was quite cool. And this was essentially my first kind of Power App. It's that kind of thing. It's a low-code app. And I didn't realize it until actually when I was preparing for this talk that, yeah, that was my first kind of low-code app, which I thought was really cool. And it was like a sign of things to come. And then when I was probably about 17 or something like that, I started to get into web design. It led on, I suppose, from this project that I had at school. And I got really interested in the design side of things, making things look nice and feel good. And I started doing something that you could sign up for community forums. You could generate your own forum back then, and you could apply CSS to it, to skin it, to theme it. And I used to create lots of different themes, and then I would provide them for free to people. And it was really nice for me to be able to provide them for free and see that there were thousands of people visiting this forum that had a theme that I had created for it. I thought that was really cool. So this was, again, bringing me closer and closer towards my Power Apps career. And then when I was probably about 18, I started looking into web development. So this was the back end side of things. This was interacting with the server and storing things in a database and working with SQL and PHP, that kind of stuff. And I found that really interesting. And then when I was 18, I finished my A-levels and I had to decide what to do. And I decided that I wanted to go into music because that was still my number one passion. So I started working for a recording studio. And in the recording studio, I ended up doing more IT and technology rather than music. So I was building web apps for the recording studio, things like helping them to manage their jobs, automating transferring music to iTunes and Napster, that kind of thing. And so I was really getting more and more into tech then. And it was at that time that I developed an e-commerce site for downloading MP3s and DVDs. And I think that that was probably the first one, maybe in Europe, in the world, something like that, because I never found anything at the same time. So I was really enjoying that side of things. But then I felt like I'd reached the end of my journey with the recording studio. So I moved on from there and I somehow landed into energy consultancy because my mum was dating a guy who owned an energy consultancy business. So he was like, yeah, you can work for me part-time and see how it goes. So I did, thinking that I'd be working on energy. And in fact, as soon as they realized what I could do from the technology side, they started getting me to build all kinds of things. So I spent almost 15 years there because my mum ended up marrying the guy, and I felt like I couldn't quite leave the company, but it did eventually. So yeah, I was building lots of web apps to manage energy and do all kinds of different things within that company. And then that brings us along until quite recently. So in 2020, my stepdad sold the company and a new owner came in, and he was more forward thinking, and he started to get us to use more of the Microsoft products. And my boss at the time said to me, can you look into this thing called Dynamics 365? So I looked into it and I managed to get customer service set up for us. And I found out about Power Apps. And I got hooked from the instant that I started playing with it. And so I started learning as much as I could about it. And this was in 2022. And later that year, I started looking into applying for jobs to be a Power Apps developer. And it was at that time that I met Sarah. And Sarah was trying to help me get my first job and a few other people. And I did several different interviews and I ended up working for Bridgel. And that's basically where I am today. And so it's a long career, but it's only really the last 2 years where things have changed. And Power Apps and Power Platform has revolutionized my career and my life, really changed things. And so just want the people who are thinking about becoming a Power Apps developer to think about that kind of journey. And there's a lot that went into that, but it's really the last 2 years where everything changed for me. And I only knew about Power Apps in the last 2 years. And then I've got myself to where I am today. And everyone can do the same, really. It's just about learning and working hard and hopefully enjoying it. Anyway, let's talk about you now. That's enough about me. So your superpowers. So every one of you has a superpower, or what I consider a superpower. Now, it might be if you're thinking about transitioning from one industry to another industry, that you have industry-specific knowledge. Like if we think about the really big names in Power Platform, someone like Matthew Devaney, he comes from an accountancy background. So he has that superpower of knowing about accountancy. But you'll have different things that you know about. And these I consider superpowers. It might also be that maybe you're a whiz with Excel or something like that, a whiz with PowerPoint. Again, I'd consider that a superpower because you'll be the person that people will go to when they need help with that. And that kind of knowledge can be translated into Power Apps, especially with Excel. You might have some soft skills. Maybe you're really good at calming people down when they get irate, so you'd be good with the difficult customers. It could be anything. There's so many different things, but we all have these things that we're good at. And all of these things that we're good at can be translated into being useful as a Power Apps developer, especially work ethic, of course, because there's a lot to learn. So when we're thinking about superpowers, I think it's important to consider that maybe Power Apps is not 100% the best thing for you. It's always worth considering, do I want to stay as a Power Apps developer, or maybe I want to veer off into another direction? Maybe you're ultimately more interested in data analytics or something like that. Maybe you're more interested in customizing the Dynamics apps. Or maybe you're really not that interested in the technology aspect and you'd rather be an account manager or something along those lines. And I've put AI consultant because I think it's really worthwhile thinking about the AI side of things, because so many more jobs are going to open up around AI. So maybe that's a way to start putting yourself into the technology industry. Lots of things to consider. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about with this is a couple of days ago, I went to a user group event, and it was hosted, well, it was organized by Bedrock Data, James Reeves, and it was hosted by a company called Code Nation. And Code Nation demoed this application that they've been working on, which is where it's to help people who are non-tech to get into the tech industry. And essentially, they would answer 140 non-tech questions. And at the end of it, they'll get a result that tells them which of these tech roles is most suited to them, which they'd be most good at. And it was very interesting to see that. And they give you a spider diagram that shows you your different attributes, what you're good at, what you're not good at. And yeah, at the end of it, it'll tell you you should be a Power Apps developer, or you should be a graphic designer, that kind of thing. So it's really interesting. So I don't know if there are things on the internet for that, but maybe there's some kind of way you can ascertain as to what are you good at, what are you not good at. Is Power Apps developer the best thing for you? Is it one of the other roles? If you want to be a Power Apps developer, here are some things that I think are the real kind of high-level basics as to what are a good idea to learn. Of course, there's a lot more to this, but it's very easy to get overwhelmed. So I think it's important to just focus on a few things. And so this is from my perspective as to when I was getting a job, what I think was important. So learning how to create a Canvas app, just a basic Canvas app that interacts with data. I'd say Dataverse is really important if you're going into working for a Microsoft partner, but also to learn about SharePoint lists and storing data in them, and the file storage. Model-driven apps. So model-driven apps are based upon Dataverse, so they really go hand in hand. It's a good idea to learn how to build a model-driven app and to customize it at least a little bit. Power Automate for automating. So this will be things like maybe moving data from one place to another, maybe email notifications. It could be integrating with other systems. Just to learn the basics of Power Automate, I think is important. So those four things I think are very important to learn the fundamentals for. And then one thing that I noticed when I was searching for a Power Apps job is that Azure DevOps kept coming up in every single job listing. So I knew that I needed to learn something about it. And it took me a while to understand exactly what it does, because it does lots of things. And I couldn't find anywhere that said, this is what Azure DevOps does. And it's basically for project management in a sense. So you'll have tasks, you work on the tasks, you complete the tasks, and it manages that aspect of it. And of course, the tasks get assigned to you. And there are other sections to it, like it has a built-in wiki where you can store documentation and information about the project. It has a section for pipelines, and pipelines are where you would move your app from one place to another. So if you wanted to move your app from your development environment into a test environment so that someone can test it, and then ultimately move it into production. And DevOps also has a section for testing. So if you want to go through a testing process and you want to record it, it can do that. So DevOps does lots of different things. It does a lot more than that. But I think those are the basic things that are good to know if you're going for your first Power Apps developer job. And to actually open up Azure DevOps, it's free. You can get a version of it with a developer environment, which is also free. And then you can start playing around with it. And yeah, just play around with all of these things and it will help you tons. So working for a Microsoft partner. Now, this is a huge topic, and I spoke to Craig about this in depth, and I spoke to Madeline from Curve about this in depth as well, because there's so much to it, and I wanted to have a good idea about it, because the way that Bridge will work on a project will not necessarily be the same as other companies. And these were the things that came out for me, that the moment that you start working for them, you really need to start thinking about the project management elements. You need to start thinking about tracking your time, which was something I didn't have in my previous energy consultancy role. For them, I could do what I wanted when I wanted. If I was more interested in one thing, I'd focus on that and I'd ignore the boring stuff until I had to do it. But I can't really do that when working for a Microsoft partner because there are things that need to be done at certain times. So it's a lot more focused, and that can take some time to adjust to. Collaboration. So you'll be collaborating with colleagues and you'll be collaborating with clients. So you have to get used to working in a team and collaborating with lots of different kinds of people. There will probably be some ways of working, some standards, some best practices, and those will be things that you'll need to follow. And there'll also be things as when you move to every company, you have different ways of working. There's an adjustment to it all. You'll want to consider the configuration, governance, and security aspect of everything. So whether it's an app or whether it's a SharePoint site or whatever you're working with, you'll always need to have those things in the back of your mind. Consider different aspects that you probably wouldn't have considered before. And then testing. So of course you want to test it as you're working on it. You want to make sure you implement error handling because you don't want it to go to the client and things to break, but nothing to happen. They just know that things are broken. And you want to consider that what are you going to pass over to your tester if you have a dedicated tester, or do you have to do the testing yourself? It's a very important part of the process because at the end of your testing, you're essentially saying this product is good to go and you give it to the client. And if it has bugs, that's obviously going to be a problem. Solution deployment is another thing. It might not be something you're handling yourself, but it's something to be aware of. So when you've created your app, it will be contained within a solution and you'll need to pass it somewhere else. And someone's going to be responsible for that. So you might have to learn how to create pipelines, how to modify pipelines, or it might be someone else within your company. And there are different ways of deploying solutions. So there's Azure DevOps for deploying, but there's also built-in Power Platform pipelines as well. And they're very different processes with very different complexities. And then finally, documentation is really important. So as I mentioned before, you can put documentation in your wiki in DevOps. You might have it in a folder in a Teams channel. It could be in various different places, but you'll want to have things like a systems guide that you'll need to write up, user documentation. You'll probably need to do things like create ERDs, which is an entity relationship diagram. It's essentially a diagram that shows you what the database looks like, what the structure looks like. So yeah, lots to learn. But again, as I said before, give yourself time to learn it all, get used to the basics and just take it step by step. So what should you do? Again, this is from the perspective of me when I was applying for my job. I had examples of my work. I think that's really important to show what you can do. You need a demonstration of what you can do. Certifications are always useful for a Microsoft partner because they need them in order to get to different levels with Microsoft. And there are now applied skills. So these applied skills, they're free to take at the moment, and you can show that you can actually demonstrate you can do the job. So you're showing that you can apply the skills that you have essentially. So what an applied skill will be is where you'll be in an environment within Microsoft Learn where they tell you to perform a series of tasks. And then once you've performed that, they'll then score you on it and hopefully you pass. A nice CV, I think, is really important. Sarah can probably talk much more on this than I can, but I think it's important to have a CV that looks good, that stands out. And you imagine that if someone's sifting through 100 CVs, what's yours going to look like in comparison to the other 99? I think that's really important. Keeping up to date with changes is very important with Power Platform. So I think one of the things that helped me to get my job was that when I had the interview, they were asking me about new features in Power Platform and Power Apps, and I could demonstrate that I had knowledge about those new features. So if you can show that you're willing to learn, you're willing to keep up to date, I think that's a really good selling point. And finally, this is a huge topic, which is network and community. So it's a huge topic on multiple aspects. So from the community aspect, if you get stuck, there's the Microsoft community forums, and you can post on there and you'll have tons of people clamoring over each other to help you, which is awesome. Of course, you can Google things or Bing things, or you can use ChatGPT or Claude or any other AI. There's so many ways that you can get information nowadays. It's brilliant. So I think community is important, from the perspective of finding information, but also from the perspective of connecting with different people, so networking. So LinkedIn is very busy as far as Power Platform is concerned, and it's a good idea to look on there. You find out new things, and you can start having conversations and making friends. Of course, we've got things like the ShortList Recruitment VRT that we're on right now. So this is a community event where we've got lots of people joining in, and you can make friends, you can network, and I think it's great. All of these types of things have really revolutionized my working life and spilled out into my personal life as well. And I'm loving it, and I really enjoy it. Yeah, so there's all of that. So I just want to say a quick thank you as well. Thank you to Sarah. Thank you to ShortList. Thank you to Craig and Madeline for their help. Thank you to Bridgel, because they gave me the job. And to Graham, my boss, he's been very supportive. And of course, Josh, who's on here. Josh has been immensely supportive with everything that I've been doing with Bridgel. And yeah, just an awesome person. So yeah, thank you to everyone. And yeah, so now we're on to questions and comments. And I'd really love for as many people as possible to get involved, whether you want to give more advice to people, whether you want to ask questions, anything you want to say, just go for it. So yeah, go for it, Craig.
Yeah, thanks for obviously firstly inviting me to kind of help to contribute in some way, shape or form to this, because it's a really important topic, and I think it's becoming more and more important now as people are looking to make that transition. So well articulated, is really good content. Thanks, mate. There's two things that I kind of wanted to add to that. One, I can personally agree with one of the earlier slides of if you've got some previous experience with Excel or Access, that transition into Canvas apps especially is really easy from a formula perspective. There's a whole heap of different things to learn about UI and UX, but in terms of actually writing the code for apps to perform the logic you want to, such as if statements or lookups, a lot of it's very kind of transferable from Excel. So if you've got some confidence there, it's certainly a good segue into the Power Platform. So I'll certainly mention that. The only other thing to kind of add to that last slide, or the one before this slide, having a really important portfolio to show other people what the kind of stuff that you've built. Again, massively agree with that. I do a lot of personal development in my own time, so I have lots of silly apps to kind of build and show off, because it's not always easy to show stuff you're doing from a work perspective, because there might be sensitive data in there, so you probably might not be able to present that on an interview. So I'll put in the FA in the Q&A section in a moment a link to Natty Turtledove's GitHub. Some of you may have heard of him. He's got those kind of scenario like power use cases. So he's got like some fictitious use cases that you can potentially go away and build different apps and flows, so you can then present them on an interview as your examples of work. So if ever you're struggling to kind of find things to show on an interview, because I do think that's really important, something I look for as well. Yeah, Natty's are kind of given us a platform to have some of those generic cases that we can go and build for ourselves. So I'll put the link in the Q&A chat now for anyone that wants it. All right.
I feel like I'm being called out.
There he is. Hey, mate. How you doing?
Great session, Charles. Absolutely phenomenal.
Thank
you.
Can I just second that, Craig? I've put a note in the Q&A as well, but from a recruitment point of view, the stuff that Natty's put out for you to do and give examples it's really valuable, actually. I've just interrupted there, sorry. Josh, if you got your hand up.
Yeah, just want to say thank you, Charles. A brilliant talk as always. Just wanted to echo really the importance of community and networking. If you're trying to get into Power Platform and start doing more of it, how awesome the community is. Been so welcoming to myself, and it's a brilliant thing to get involved in, and you're always learning, and you feel like you learn a lot more when you've got like-minded people around you. So definitely, if you're not getting involved, get involved, because it's well worth it.
Yeah, great. And Josh is now volunteering for the Scottish Power Platform user group. That's another good community. You have virtual events for that you can attend and learn lots of stuff.
Yeah, that's a great user group, the Scottish user group.
Yeah.
They do a lot online and in person, don't they?
Mm.
Has anyone got any other questions? I know there's a lot of people on here interested. There is some in the Q&A actually, Charles. Full name
Yeah.
there.
Okay. That's a lot to read. So Usman, you currently have your PL 900, 2 applied skill badges, so that's great. Almost graduating from the Power Up course, studying soon for PL 200. When should you start applying? I don't know whether, Sarah, you want to contribute to this.
Yeah, I think yeah, it's a great start getting those certifications, just to sort of show that you've got that basic understanding. But I think coming back to the point on doing some exercises and showing some examples as well, just to back that up from a practical point of view, will help. If anyone wants any CV advice on here as well, by the way, that's free, absolutely fine. I can look at your CV, because I think it's important to demonstrate exactly what you've done, what level of understanding you've got, not kind of over-egging it or under-egging it. And it's important for your CV to look good, but the content really has to be there. So it depends. I think start applying straight away. You know, it's quite competitive for the graduate and junior roles. I have to say, there's a lot of people interested in getting into those, so I'd apply for all of them. Unfortunately, they don't tend to use me for too many of those as an agent because there is quite a high demand, but there are programs within a lot of the Microsoft partners to bring people in on that basis. There's a Power Platform School as well, and other there's a few different sort of setups like that that can maybe help you and that have relationships with some companies. But I think in answer to your question, get applying, get involved in community, start making friends with the people that are organising user groups or attending user groups, because they're all around the UK, aren't they? So there's not many people that can't get to a user group. I was in Manchester last night, and it's just a really good way to get involved with the community, make friends, get some advice from the techies on new stuff that's coming out. And again, to come back to one of your points, Charlie, it's changing all the time, isn't it? There is just so much. I don't think even the architects on the call here today can know everything, all the updates that are coming out. And, you know, at every session, whether it's one of mine or one of, you know, the demos at the user groups that we go to, you know, the experienced techies always learn something, you know, literally straight away. You know, one slide in last night, they were learning. So yeah, do that, get your knowledge, be able to have conversations about it. It's great to have the exams, but be able to talk about it in context. And I think the best way to be able to do that is have practical experience, so using the tools that are out there. I hope that helps.
Yeah, I'll add to that as well. I think I was in roughly the same position when I started applying for my first Power Apps job. I think I might have just passed the PL 200, but similar position. And I think the things that helped me to get my job were because I had examples of work. I had an example of an app that was being used already by the business I was working for. I had integrated customer service, Dynamics 365, and hopefully my CV looked good. And I think all of those things helped, and showing that I had knowledge about latest changes as well. So yeah, all of those things.
Yeah, and that's a good point. There's a lot of people that come into Power Platform as developers that have been using licenses that they've got, or the free licenses they've got. I think, well, Charlie, I'm not sure about you. Craig, I think maybe you kind of did this and started just building things with the tools you had available rather than going straight into the role, fixing problems with Power Automate and Power Apps and the Microsoft licenses that were available.
Yeah, so he's just got to be creative, and like what Usman's actually said there, he's doing this in his own time, so he's finding ways of getting involved with the tech for what I'm guessing is probably going to minimal or little cost. There are ways to kind of attaching a developer tenant if you want to play around the Power Platform, sort of developer environment to an existing tenant, gives you access to all the premium features. So if you're not building stuff in your workplace per se, you've got a space to go and use all the premium stuff and understand how it all works, because then when you kind of do get that role, you do understand like the full breadth. I think a lot of citizen developers come from a SharePoint background, which is cool. That's why I'm started. So I'm all for the SharePoint. I'm all for the SharePoint love. But what we do find is when people come to apply for those roles, they've not got experience of Dataverse. So if you've got access to get a community or developer plan, either to a personal tenant or to your work tenant, start playing around with Dataverse, and then to start playing around with some of the more of those premium features. Because I think, certainly from my perspective, working for a partner, but also, you know, internal IT is starting to get more and more involved in those premium feature sets. If you can get more familiar with those too, even just understanding what, I mean, if anyone can understand licensing, good luck. But just actually understanding that, you know, there are more things that, you know, come as part of the toolbox. And if you've got some experience, even theoretical knowledge or experience about those things, is also going to hold you in good stead. So it's a very, probably a long answer between the three of us. If you want to go for those jobs, yeah, your certs are always important, and always keep them up to date. When they come up for renewal, make sure you get your emails in there for every 12 months when they come around. But trying to get that hands-on experience as a recruiter or someone who recruits myself, yeah, I want to know that you've got that technical breadth and you understand, you've got your certs, but can you show me a gallery you've built with some conditional formatting? Can you show me your best practices in Power Automate? I want to see what you've done hands-on and kind of what level you're at and how much value you can then bring to my team. So find those spaces to kind of build on your own projects, and I think that'll really help you all.
I think that helps to explain the theory of it as well, right? So if I've kind of read up on any of the Microsoft Learn material, but then I've actually gone into an environment which lovely Stu Baxter helped me set up, and I've kind of tinkered a little bit with that, but it just makes so much more sense having gone in and actually done stuff.
Definitely, yeah. And Thomas Lav said, if licenses are not an issue, how do you decide or suggest whether to develop Canvas apps or model-driven apps? I think it's probably a subjective answer, but I would say start off with whichever you're most interested in. So if you're really interested in doing the design element, then start off with Canvas apps. If you're interested in just quickly creating a data-driven app, then go to model-driven. But ultimately, you'll need to learn both of them. So yeah, it's difficult to answer that one, really. I guess maybe think about what you want to create. So what you want to create will probably help steer you in a direction of model-driven or Canvas app.
I think that Dataverse experience is important if you can get it as well, because it can be hard to get if you've just got the SharePoint license. And yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you've been building model-driven apps, automatically you've worked with Dataverse, so that's clear then from your CV as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so with the Canvas app, you could use a Dataverse as the backend for it as well. So yeah, lots of different ways of doing things. I think really the most important thing is to use both and just play around and try and get excited by it. Try and have fun with it, because the more fun you have with it, the more likely you are to keep going.
Yeah, that's what I found. If you're trying to build your own personal portfolio, rather than recreate per se something you're building for a customer or a client or someone internally that might not, you know, tick all your boxes, get you going, find a subject that you like data about and you want to resonate with. So some of you on the call know that a couple of years ago I built a Power App with Formula One data. No one's ever going to use it. It's not going to be sold to a client. It's just for my own personal development, but it's data I get really excited about. So if you want to kind of expand your personal portfolios, also think about data that you're really excited about, because I think that will make you more willing to then go and learn and try different things and work out what you want to do to kind of get to the things that you want to see in that app first and foremost. And also they can be good things to present on an interview as well. It's not like a run-of-the-mill, oh yeah, I've built a ticket request system. Well, we've actually loads of those. But if you rocked up with a Power App that analysed Roger Federer's Grand Slam victories, I'll be well excited for that, because it's something different and you've kind of applied your own passions to the Power Platform. And sometimes that can go quite a long way in helping you learn the technologies as well, right?
And it gets your personality across.
Yeah, it does, 100%. And that's a big part of what we're doing with Low Code. It's the personality side, the people skills is just as important as the technical. So injecting your personality into your apps is super important. You know, I know Charles, you do a lot of that. You inject a lot of your personality into your presentations as well, and it comes across. And you know, you can transfer those kind of skills to parts of the Power Platform as well, for sure.
I was talking to someone last night who built a Power App for their baby feeding schedule.
That's wicked. It can be done for anything. Like, you know, you can build solutions for your family. I know a guy I work with, he built a solution for his kid to help learn numbers and subtractions and adding. Like, there's lots of things out there that if it's not quite good enough in the app stores for iOS or Android, have a go at building your own. Chances are you'll kind of get to a certain point where you've got something that works, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, and you probably enjoy it more. I know a lot of the advice we give to employers about tech tasks is make it fun, make it fairly sort of simple instructions so people can go and really get stuck into it and get a bit carried away. So yeah.
There's an MVP called Robin something. I don't know if anyone can pronounce his surname, but he created an app.
I think. Yeah,
there we go. Yeah, he's brilliant. He created an app to generate stories for his kids, bedtime stories. So I can't remember exactly how it works, but I think he could put a name into it and maybe something else like a superpower, and then it would generate this character and generate the story about the character using AI. So that was really cool. He had a different story for every night.
I've got a funny story about AI. Literally, as I was walking into the room to do this, we've got one of our candidates in the USA has been requested to interview, and he's too busy. So he's asked if his AI GPT can do the interview for him. My colleague was like, "What do you think?" I was like, "I think that's brilliant." It shows what direction we're going in. That was great. Totally off topic, but as we're talking about AI.
AI is a very good thing to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments?
Nope. Simon?
Just going to say thank you for sharing your time. It's much appreciated. Very useful. So thank you for offering up your time. Really, really useful stuff.
Thank you also, Simon. Yeah, and if anyone wants to connect with me, anyone wants to ask any questions outside of this, feel free. You can pretty much contact. Oh, have I frozen?
No.
Okay, you can pretty much contact anyone in the community and you'll get a lovely response from them. I've only ever had positivity from everyone, and I think the Power Platform community is quite special. I don't know whether it extends to all of Microsoft, but yeah, Power Platform in particular, it's a community like nothing else I've ever seen before. So just reach out to people if you want to, and they'll be willing to help you most likely.
Or if not, point you somewhere where they can.
Yeah. Sorry, too busy. Go talk to Craig.
Yeah.
Hang on a minute. That's not what I said. No, but yeah, echo that. Again, I put in the Q&A link to the Microsoft community calls. If you're not aware of those, there's about 6 or 7 that they run, different points of the week. The Power Platform one on I think the third Wednesday of every month is quality. It's all the chat's always full of banter, always lots of big names and inverted commas, people that will be familiar with across the community. I think Shane Young hosts it now as well, so he is exactly as you would expect from his videos when he's hosting a call. He's really funny, and the community vibe on those calls every month is really good, and that does extend out to the rest of the community. And I like to think I'm probably on one of those. If you reach out to me on LinkedIn, it might take me a day or two to reply, but I always try and help pay it forward. I know Charles does as well, and there's so many other people in the community are just here to help others, because that's how we've got to the positions we're in, to be able to come and share our knowledge and advice on these calls. We relied on the people in the community helping us a couple of years ago, and hopefully there's some people on this call now that can take the stuff from this call, and in a couple of years they're here giving this advice to other people that then get into the platform. And I think that's very much what the Power Platform community is all about. So anything we can do to help you, that's what we're here for, right?
And those community calls are recorded as well, so they're on YouTube. So if anyone wants to catch up on an old one, then you can do that. There's so much to learn from them, from demos and things like that. Jayesh?
Yes, I was
Hi.
having one question. Yeah, hello, first of all. So it was a great session actually, learning about the techniques, how to learn good things, and about the Power Platform and all. Just having one question regarding conversation application. Like I'm having good knowledge in Canvas applications, and I've been building applications for last 3 years. But I never got a chance to work with the model-driven applications. So, is there something like is there any resource which I can go through and learn Canvas, model-driven applications from scratch? And second thing would be, uh, how should I start? Because those are some sort of like premium features of the Power Platform, right? So, how should I like if there is anything I can start with like Dev account or something, so which can help me get it for free and all. So just want to understand on those things.
Yeah, so what Craig was saying before about the developer environment, that will give you the ability to use Dataverse and model-driven apps, and you can play around with it. As far as learning is concerned, you can also go on the Microsoft Learn Paths, of course, and do that. But if you prefer using YouTube or watching videos, then Lisa Crosby's really good with her model-driven app videos. Yeah, I don't know if anyone else wants to add some more to that.
So
No,
just like,
exactly right.
have
So
you
yeah,
created
if you
anything?
Google if you Google the
related?
developer environments, you should be able to find a link where you can register those for free. So you should be able to attach it to your work tenant, but there is a setting for some Power Platform admins to turn that ability off. So if you can't get a developer environment spun up for your work tenant, you might have to reach out to your IT department to kind of get some support for that. But yes, it will give you the access to go and play around with all the kind of the premium features, especially Dataverse. It's definitely good for a learning curve there.
Yeah, would that be possible for you, Josh?
Yes. Thanks. Like that information helps me a lot. I just want to know, like, I don't see, what should I say? So I see a lot of use of Canvas applications. I've created a lot of applications and I solve a lot of real-time problems. But uh, I'm not getting like how to get into the model-driven applications and how we can utilize it at organization level, or how it can be helpful for the personal productivity or anything.
Do you mean the difference between Canvas apps and model-driven apps?
I do know a little bit about that, but as I mentioned, like I have never got a chance to work with model driven, so I'm just kind of new to it actually.
Yeah, so you want some experience with that.
Yes.
Parvez, were you wanting to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say from my experience at least, I tend to find that the model driven are more common in the kind of enterprise grade projects. So one way to kind of get exposure to those would be to probably try to spin up some of the trials for the first party applications, which are basically really large model driven apps. So for customer service and for sales and for dynamics marketing, you can spin up free trials, which I think they last for like 30 days or something. But hopefully that gives you enough time to explore what a model-driven app looks like in an enterprise-grade environment, and then maybe you can try to replicate some of those features in your own developer environment off the back of that. So that might be one way of doing it.
That's a great idea. Yeah, you can see how
Yeah, sure.
Microsoft have
I
built
will
it.
try.
Yeah.
Yeah, you go ahead. I was just saying that I will try on that. I will see some like enterprise applications developed using model driven, and I will try to replicate them.
Anyone else?
Okay. Cool. Well, oh, Dan. You there, Dan?
Hey guys, how you doing?
Dan.
Hey.
Hey Charles, great session. Thank you for that. That was really good.
Thank you.
Say, always find your content. I'm always finding it, and it's always spot on. So, thanks for that one. I just wanted to chime in just from the people skills side of things. So, a lot of the questions, and I see this not just like kind of this session, but other people as well. They're asking the right questions. Okay, what certs should I do? What courses should I follow? But as Craig leaned into, 50% of this is people skills. And when you're working in a Power Platform, you're solving business problems. You're working, these problems exist day to day in everyone's work streams. So for me, to be honest with you, I got a job in the Power Platform through networking, not having the technical skills to go and hit the ground running. And it was very much understanding what the challenges are and actually looking at the sector I was working in. Although I was working in an IT sector, I was working in IT infrastructure, so wasn't a lot of overlap with Power Platform, but just going around talking to people in finance, in the legal sector, in construction, and actually hear what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. And then to understand that and then bring that to an interview actually made the world of difference for me, because I could actually demonstrate that I understood different sectors. Yeah, sure, you had that base understanding of the Power Platform, but the ability to kind of show your personality, show your sector knowledge, and the fact you understand how businesses work is equally valuable. And I think, that's the story I end up telling to people, is because it's almost like a talk my way into it rather than actually show the skills, right? Because you can always, I'm a firm believer that you can talk and you can teach tech skills, but it's also equally as hard to actually pick up the personality skills. So if you want to work on the personal side of it, I mean, there's a chap I follow on YouTube called Vin Giang, really good chap who, you tone of voice, the way you present yourselves, how you're looking on camera. It's really worth checking these things out as well, because it makes a big difference, especially when you're being interviewed and you've got the hiring team looking at you. Because I've hired people in the past based on how they present themselves rather than the technical ability they're demonstrating. So just thought I'd throw that in there just as another comment, because I think it gets glossed over a little bit when we get into like these technical conversations, but it really is 50% of the battle.
Yeah, definitely agree with that one.
Yeah, so much of it is client facing, isn't it? So it's a little bit different to some of the pro code roles out there. There is a lot of solution based work, working with clients. So it's a really good point. Thanks, Dan. Nice to see you. Is there anything else?
You want people to come across well when they're talking to clients. You don't want them to come across badly because they're representing the business.
Oh, absolutely. Like I say, I've been in workshops where I've seen people kind of very stationary and they're pointing at the board and they're talking figures and the room just isn't engaged. But I have to find myself, I get a bit expressive, my hands go everywhere, and sometimes I feel like I'm being a bit silly, but you actually become more engaging and you hold people's attention. And as I said, you're solving business challenges, you need to understand people's requirements, and if you've got their attention, they're engaged with you, they're going to give you more information. So it's always these little soft skills that are really worth working on because they yield such a big return. So yeah, just to say, it's really worth that as well. It makes you stand out against other people as well, because I'll have 100 people with a PL 900 or a PL 200, but what sets you apart from those people is probably going to be personality and the business knowledge. So yes, worth brushing up on.
Yeah, and if you're passionate about it, that helps as well. Makes it easier to come across well in an interview because you get excited about it and they can see that excitement. And yeah, people feed off of positivity. So that's good.
Definitely a good point. And as we were sort of talking about, the people in the community are also lovely, upbeat, friendly. It's kind of, that's the sort of culture in this industry. So yeah, definitely. And it adds to the trust factor as well, doesn't it? If a client trusts what you're telling them to do, it might not be quite what they wanted to hear, but if you've got that rapport with them, you've got a better chance of convincing them. So yeah, really good point. Just check the Q&A, and then if we wrap it up, I kind of wanted to add in that, if there's anyone on here that is after a bit of advice from a recruiter, I'm happy to do that, schedule some time. As I say, we don't get a lot of call for juniors because there is a lot of people out there looking to get into this, but I'm happy to give some free advice on CVs, interview techniques and things like that. Just reach out on LinkedIn. And we can set some time aside if you wanted to do a Teams call as well. But yeah, Charles, when are you speaking next? You've got a few things lined up, I think, haven't you?
The only one that's scheduled at the moment is European Power Platform Conference in June. So I'll be in Belgium.
Not too shabby,
which is really exciting. Yeah.
I think, Craig, you're at that one, aren't you? Michael?
Yeah, doing an all-day workshop on the Tuesday. So yeah, apparently it's sold out, which is pretty mad. So
wow.
yeah, looking forward to that. Should be good. And then 2 days of enjoying other people's sessions, such as Charles, and there's lots of other people in the community there. I think coming from all over the world, because people come from America to present in the Belgium one in June. So yeah, it should be a fun time.
Yeah, it's the place to be.
Where all the cool kids are going to hang out.
Yeah, definitely. It should be
And
nice as
me.
well. And you.
I was about to say that, and me.
See, I knew it was going to come, so I thought I'd get in there first.
Oh, fab. Okay, I hope this has been helpful. I look forward to seeing everybody again soon. Thanks again, Charles. That was brilliant.
Thank you.
And
Thank you
Craig,
to everyone
thank you for
who's
your
here.
input.
Cheers, Charles. Good one. Thanks.
Thanks for
Right.
that. Great
See
session.
you all soon. Thank
Cheers,
you.
thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Natty. Bye.